Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make my wrapghan. Now this is a cross between a wrap and a lapghan. So I made this for the summer, for when I'm sitting in the garden and it comes towards the evening and you're not really wanting to go in but the temperature's dropping. So you can either put this around your shoulders like a wrap, or you can put it over your lap like a blanket. So this is made with a kind of granny rectangle, and because I wanted it to be nice and lightweight, I'm using a 3-weight yarn, which is a DK weight in the UK, and the yarn that I used was a Lion Brand Mandala called GNOME. But I don't have any more GNOME to show you, so I do have this one. I don't know what the name of this one is because I lost the yarn band some time ago, but it's a 3-weight and it's another Lion Brand Mandala, or Mandala, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to show you how to make it. Now with the blanket, or wrapghan, as I should say, as I said, I wanted it to be nice and loose and lightweight, and the way that you achieve that, to make it light and airy, is to use a larger crochet hook than you would normally use with that yarn. So normally with a DK or 3-weight yarn, I'll use a 4 or a 4.5, but this time I'm using a 5.5, and that makes the stitches a little bit lighter and airier. So that's how I achieved that. So when you pick it up, it doesn't seem to have a lot of weight in it, still keeps you quite warm. So to start with, I'm going to do a slip knot, and you can do that however you normally would, but you just need to make a slip knot and 23 chain. So to do a chain, we just yarn over and pull it through the loop that we have, yarn over and pull it through. So it's as simple as that. That's how we make a chain. So now I've done 3, I need another 20. So because it's confusing when somebody else is counting, I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back to you when I've done my 23. Okay, so now I have 23 chain. What I'm going to do is a UK treble crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So I just need to get my yarn sorted because I had it on the wrong side. So there we go. So this loop that's on the hook doesn't count. So we've got 1 chain, 2, and then 3. So we're going to work, make sure we don't lose the loop we're on. I'm going to work in that 3rd one from the hook, which is there. So we've got 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Didn't pull up the loop properly. So I have 3 on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through another 2. So that is a UK treble or a US double crochet. Now the 2 chain that I started with and this one count as another stitch. So I'm going to do another one in the same space. There we are. So we've got 3. If you just bear with me one moment, I'm going to pause the video and get rid of my bracelet because it keeps clanking, and I just come back to you in a second. Sorry about that. I didn't know if you could hear it, but it would become annoying after a while. So what we've basically got are the 2 chain that we started with, and so we went into the 3rd chain from the hook, and then we've done 2 UK trebles or US doubles, and we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to go into the very next stitch, the very next chain, which is this one, and we're going to do 3 more. Don't worry if the loop that you're going into does get a little bit elongated. It will work itself out. Just try not to pull it too much, but it will even out. So we've got 3 in the very next stitch. Just need to pull out some more yarn. Won't be a moment. Okay, so now we have what, if you look, it's turning a corner, and this will be our side and this will be our top. So now we're going to skip 2 and go into the 3rd chain along, and we're going to do another 3. So we're going to skip 1, 2 and go into the 3rd and make another 3 in that one chain. And we're going to repeat that until we get to our last stitches. We'll have 1 left at the end once we've done our last cluster of 3. So we're just going to go in each 3rd chain along. And this is what it will look like. Just make that a little bit longer. So that's what we're aiming for. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to carry on working my way along, and I'll catch up with you when I've got my very last stitch left. Okay, so I've gone all the way along. Now what we'll have is 1 at the side here, and we'll have 7 clusters all the way along, and we've got to the last stitch. We've got 1 left over, so we're going to chain 1, and just like we did at this end, we're going to replicate this to go around the corner. So we'll chain in 1, and we're going to go in that very last stitch and do another 3 UK treble crochets or US doubles. So that's exactly the same as the other end. Now I'm going to chain 1 because we're going backwards now. We're going to go back on ourselves, and I'm going to work over this yarn. So we're not going to go in here because this is our side. We're going to go back into this, which is our first of our clusters along the top edge. So we're going to do 3 in the same stitch, the other side. I've just worked over my tail. No chains in between. We're just going to go into this one exactly the same as the row beneath. I'm just going to tip that into my finger there and just go into the same stitch and do our 3. We're going to do that all the way along, just completely mirroring what we're doing, what we had below. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there are new videos. I will be making a left-handed tutorial and a right-handed, and there'll be a link from one to the other. So if you find yourself in the wrong one, then there'll be a link in the description box and a card that pops up at the beginning that you can click on, and it will take you to the other tutorial. Okay, so we're almost back to the start. Need to pull out my yarn before we go on. Okay, so we've done 3 in that one. And as you can see, that although it did pull them loose at the time you worked on them, if you look at those loops now, they're not baggy, they look fine. So we've got 1 more to do, and then this is our side. So we're going to go in this one with our 3. And now we need to join, once we've done this cluster, we need to join just as we have to our corner. So I'm not going to be changing colours, obviously, because this is a mandala, but if you were going to be changing colours, I will show you how to do that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make this seamless so we don't see any joins of any kind. So to do that, I'm going to do a half treble crochet in the top of my 2 chain that started it all off. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into that chain. I'm going to try and get the front and the back loops. Sometimes you can't. You don't. No, it's not going to play with me today. You just go in. Oh, it actually worked that time. And yarn over and pull up a loop. So instead of a chain and then slip stitch in, which puts us into this stitch here, I'm going to do this and be right in the center of the stitch that I need to be in. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. That gives me the same size gap in this as it does here, but it puts my stitch right in the center of this gap. So I'm going to chain 2. Now if I had changed colours, I wouldn't just chain 2. I would go into the stitch and pull up a loop, and then I would do my 2 chain like this, because that would get rid of a little tiny bar of the wrong colour showing in your work. But because we're not, when this actually does change colour around this mandala, when I get to this point, if it is a different colour, that's how I will do it. But because this is the same, I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do 2 more UK treble crochet or US double crochets into this same corner space. So now I've got my cluster of 3. Now this is half of a corner. I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to come back and finish this corner, and that's how we keep it seamless. So this is our side, if you like, and I'm going to go now straight into this corner, and I'm going to do my cluster of 3. I'm going to do a full corner in this one. So I'm doing my 3 stitches, and I'm going to chain 1. Now some people like to chain 2 at their corners. If you're a chain 2 person, then by all means please do it, if that's how you like your corners to be. But I always find that putting the stitches in to that gap makes the space, and I don't need any more. So I just chain 1, but if you want to, you can chain 3. So now I'm going to do 3 more UK trebles or US doubles in that same space. So I've made a full corner. Now I'm just going to go in between each of these all the way along the side with my cluster of 3. Now if you wanted to make this with a 4-weight yarn or a 5, then you could, but obviously this for me is for the summer, and so I wanted it to be light. You could also, if you wanted to, make it with thinner yarn, but just make sure that if you do, you use the corresponding crochet hook and do the right amount of rows to get it to the size that you want it to be. So all I'm doing now is my cluster of 3 in between each of my clusters in the space that's between them, all the way to the other end. And that basically is our repeat. As you can see, I'm going in between each one. Pull out some more yarn. I think the GNOME yarn that I used to make my Wrapghan that I showed you in the beginning, even though it's another Lion Brand Mandala yarn, I think it is actually thicker than this. It was DK, I did notice on the label. So I'm now back at the end again. So this is going to be a full corner in this one. So it's my cluster of 3. Followed by 1 chain and then another in the same space, which turns the corner. No chain in between, but we will go into this one and do exactly the same. So as my cluster of 3, 1 chain and then another. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like. So now there's our initial rows. I think our yarn is getting a little bit darker now. So we've got a full corner and a full corner. On the next round, we'll have a corner and 1 in the side and a corner, and it will just grow and grow with each round. I'll just pull some more yarn. What I'm going to do now is go all the way along, all the way to this corner here, going in between each of my clusters, exactly the same as I did just now. and I will catch up with you. I'm going to pause it and catch up with you when I get back to here, and I'll show you how to complete that corner. Okay, so I've made it all the way back to the beginning, and I'm going to complete this corner. Now I chose this yarn because it's nice and plain and easy to see, but you obviously, the one I made was very bright and vibrant colours, but you can make it in any colour scheme that you wish, and you can change rows yourself if you'd rather, because as you can see we are now getting darker, so when I complete this corner it's going to be half one colour and half the other. Now if that is fine by you, then using something like a mandala is fine, but you can, if you wish, just say I'm going to do 4 rows of each colour, but as you go further and further, obviously it will take more yarn to get round and make those rows. So just as long as you know that, then that's fine. So to complete the corner we're going to do 3 more in that same corner space. And I'm going to do my half treble again into the top of my 2 chain. There's my first, there's my second. So I'm just going to try and get into that way round. It's a bigger fat hook, it doesn't like to do it, but sometimes it will, but no, it won't that time. So I would persevere if I wasn't doing a tutorial. So I've got my 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3. So had this now decided it was going to change colour and it was a drastic difference, I would, as I said before, go in and pull up a loop before I do my 2 chain, and it gets rid of that little piece of colour that sticks across, which just kind of bugs me a little bit. Very minute though, I have to say. So I'm going to do the same thing all over again, 2 chain, 2 UK trebles or US doubles in that corner space. Now this round we've got 1 more in the side, so we're just going to do a cluster of 3 in there like we have done all the way around the top and bottom. And now we're back to the corner, so we're going to do our full corner in this one, and it's a very simple pattern, very easy, just a traditional granny square, but it's a rectangle. And this one's the first full corner, and then we'll just stop and have a little look, pull the yarn through, and now in the next round we'll have, once we've got our corner completed, we'll have a corner here and we'll have 2 in our sides, and that's how it's going to grow. So that's how we're just going to keep going and go further and further until it's as big as you want. I'll do 1 more round with you. So I'm going to now go in each of these segments until I get to this corner, and then I will catch up with you and we'll go around the last time together, and then I'll come back up here and we'll finish off the final corner. Okay, so I've gone all the way along and I'm back at the corner. If we turn it, so I'm going to do a full corner in this 1 corner space up this end. There we go. Need more yarn. Thought I'd pulled out rather a lot, but see, use that. Okay, so I've done half my corner. I'm going to do the rest. And just as before, we've got this 1 space here to do just a cluster, like 1 single cluster, and then we're back at the next full corner, and it's grows quite fast. Nearly there. Okay, so now we just need to go all the way along and get to this corner. So that's the only thing you've got to watch out for as you're going round and round, that when you come back, this is what, if it looks like this, you know you're back at your corner, but it takes a little bit of getting used to with the naked eye. So I'm going to now go in between each of these, and I will pause the video and catch up with you when I get back to the corner, just to show you how to make that corner again. Right, so I've made it all the way around. Just going to finish off this corner with my cluster of 3. Now I'm just going to make a swatch to show you how we do this. So now if this was my very last row, instead of doing my half treble to go into here, I will just chain 1 and join with a slip stitch, and that way all of my corners are identical. And then I would find my scissors, end off by doing a chain, cinching it down, pulling it through. So if you can imagine that this is the finished Wrapghan, and for mine I did a total of 38 rounds, including this initial one. So I had 38 rows, and then I started the border, and I'll show you how I did my border. I'm going to join the yarn at a different corner because I don't want to work over 2 ends at the same time. So I'm just going to join my yarn again here. Obviously it wouldn't be the same colour if I'd been all the way around several times. As the mandala, it would be a different colour. So just imagine that it is. So I'm going to pull up a loop, and I'm going to do 1 chain with both my working yarn and my tail. Then I'm going to drop that tail. So now I'm going to do 3 rounds with UK double crochets, which are a single crochet in the US. So I'm just going to insert my yarn, my hook, sorry, into the corner, and yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all of the loops on my hook. And I know that that was 3 loops, but normally it would be 2. So I'm going to just do 1 more in that corner. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, got 2 on my hook, yarn over and pull through both. So I'm only going to do 2. Just going to pull that because that was a little baggy there. So I've done 2 stitches, and I'm going to leave it at that. And the reason for that is by doing 2 in the corner, going all the way around and coming back and finishing off with 1, slip stitching here will put me right in the centre of my my corner, so it keeps it universal, keeps it even. So now we're going to do 1 UK double crochet or US single in every single stitch. Now don't forget this one, which sometimes gets a little bit hidden by the stitches that you've just made. So we don't want to make them too tight so it puckers, but we just want to carry on with the same tension and do 1 stitch in each one all the way along. So I'm going into the stitch itself, not into this part, but just into the top, and making they're just a small kind of nice finishing off stitch, I think. So I'm going to do a total of 3 rounds with this, because I've got a fairly large border. I'll show you my border. Border consists of 3 rows of the UK double crochet or US single, and then 2 rows of the modern V-stitch, and then 3 more of these UK doubles or US single. So it's just as simple as that, going all the way around. I'm working over that tail as I go, and get rid of that, and just keep going all the way to the end. I'll keep going with you, and I'll show you how we go around the corner. It's hard to see past the camera. You keep getting in my own way. It's not worth pausing, it's not very big, so I'll just go all the way along here with you. Now when you get to the corner, sometimes when you do a UK double or US single like this, it can be difficult to figure out which is your centre. So if there'd be my first stitch, I'm going to do 3 in each of my corners. So if you want to, just put in a little stitch marker on that stitch, and then you can see which one is your middle stitch. Just a little tip really. So now we're going to go in each one. Don't forget that first one again, that can be a bit obscured by the previous stitch, and go in each stitch all the way along, working over this tail now. Just keep it behind so it doesn't get confusing. And as we're quite close to the next corner, I'll keep going for a minute. Almost there. And I'm going to do my 3. So don't think that if you do the little trick with the stitch marker that you know, you've failed in any way, because people often ask me, how do I keep a track of which one is the centre? Because sometimes as you go around you get a little bit confused and your centre stitch gets a little bit offset. So just keep going all the way around. So I'm going to pause it now. I'm going to go all the way along here, round this corner and all the way along this edge, and I'll catch up with you when we get back to this point here. Okay, so I've made it all the way back. So all I need to do now, this was the start where I made 2 stitches. So I'm going to go into that corner and do my 3rd. And then I'm going to slip stitch into this first stitch. So now I'm dead center of my corner again. So I'm going to do a chain and cinch it down, and I'm going to do 2 stitches in this same stitch, because I'm going to start my corner. So again, I only want the 2 in my very first corner, and I'm going to do 1 stitch in every single one all the way round, and I'm going to do this for 2 more rows, this one and another. So I will have 3 rows of UK doubles or US single stitches all the way around. And in the center stitch of the corner I will do 3, and when I get back to the start I'll finish off that corner as I did before. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to pause the video and I will meet up with you when I get to the next corner. Okay, so I'm almost there. I've got 1 more stitch to do, and then this is my corner stitch. So I'm going to do 3. And if you want to, again, don't forget, if you want to, you can put a stitch marker in that center one if you find it hard to figure out which one is the center. Now I'm going to go all the way along and go to the next corner and round, and I'm going to pause it now, and I will catch up with you when I've been all the way round and I get back to the start. Okay, so I've made it all the way round, and I'm just going to finish off by going into that same stitch as my first 2, doing my last stitch and slip stitching into the center, sorry, the first one, so that would be right in the center. So now I did another round. So at the moment I've got 2, but I did do another round, and then my next stage was my my V-stitch. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you now how to sort of go straight in and do the V-stitch. So what I do now is I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do a UK treble in the same stitch. And then I'm going to miss 1, and then in the next one I'm going to do 2 UK treble crochet. and again I'm going to skip one and I'm going to do 2 in the next stitch. So that's we're going back to doing the UK treble crochet or US double crochet. Skip one, go in the next one. And we're going to do that all the way along. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you when I get to the corner. Okay, so on this round I'm at the corner, so I'm going to skip one and go into my corner stitch and do 4. Just to get around that corner. Now I'm going to go back to skipping one and doing my first modern V in the next one. I'm going to carry on, skip one, so I'm going to carry on all the way around and I will catch up with you when I get back to here. We're going to treat the corners exactly the same. We're going to do 4 in them, and I will catch up with you when we get back to this point. Okay, so I'm right back to the beginning and I'm going to do another 2. There's my first 2 stitches. I'm going to do 2 more in the same space to complete my corner. And then I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of my first 2 chain. There's one, there's the second one. So I'm just going to, get both loops, would be good. Slip stitch into there. So now I have my 4. Now, the corners are slightly different now. We're right in between. If you look, there's our first V and our last V. So I'm going to go into this one. I'm going to do 2 chain, and then I'm going to go in between that V and that V and do my first V. Then I'm going to go in between this one and make another. Now I'm just going to carry on going in between each of my V's, which opens them up slightly, and make another V. Now when I get back all the way around, I'll complete this corner. So I'm going to carry on and I'm going to go in each of my V's all the way along here, and I'll show you when I get to this corner what we do next. I'll carry on with you because it's not very far. We're just going to do a V stitch, no chain in between. We don't need that with the modern V. The stitches open it up and I think it looks nicer. So we're just going to go in each one, and I've got a squeaky hook, so I just need to stop for a second and wipe the hook. It's just where I've been a bit warm, I think. Heating's on. That's it. So I've wiped my hook. No more squeaking. It's cool. And we're just going to go in each one. Do another, because it would have been nice if the mandala had changed colours and you'd got to see a little bit more colour changing, but this one seems to have quite a lot of each colour on the cake. But this second round's corner is different from the first. So I wanted to make sure that I showed you a couple of times how we get around. This is the last round of the V-stitch, unless of course you wanted to do more. But I did 2. And this as well, because I've done just 2 rows before I started the V-stitch, at least you'll see which one you prefer. So now I'm at the corner and you can see I've got my 2 V's, but I'm going to treat it as 3 V's. So I'm going to do 1 in this first, and then I'm going to go in between them and do one there. And then I'm going to go into the very next one. And then I'm just going to carry on in each of them again. And it does actually work out quite nicely. It doesn't pull or become tight or anything. So as this is a very short side, I will show you again that corner. Whoops. Almost there. Okay, this is the last normal V-stitch before we get to the corner. So here we have it again, our first V, the in-between, our second V. So we're going to do one in the first V, one in the in-between, which is the dead corner, dead centre of our corner, and one in the next V. And that completes the corner. So if I pull that out and I just want to show you what that looks like, I'll show you on the completed corner. As you can see, it just finishes it off nicely. So I'm going to carry on now and go all the way around and do the same in this corner. So I shall do one in this part, one in the centre, and one in that part of the corner. And I will meet up with you when I get back to this point here. Excuse me, just made it all the way back, and I have my corner to complete. So I went into the start of it was in the dead center one, so now I have to do my last V in the one that starts the kind of corner. And now I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of my first two chain. There's the first one, there's the second one to join it. And now we're going to do a few rounds of the UK double or US single. I'll do 2 rounds, and then you can see what it looks like with 2 rows of it, and on my finished Wrapghan with 3. So now I'm going to slip stitch into our center V. So here's our that one, and there's our second one. So this is our center one. If you this is the one that goes in between the gap part of the previous row. So there's our first V for the corner, our second V, and our third V for these corners. So I'm just going to slip stitch into the next one. So I'm in there. I'm going to do 1 chain and cinch it down, and now I'm going to do 2 UK double crochet or US single crochets, just as we did before, so that when I finish in the center. So now, instead of doing 1 in each stitch as we go around, I'm going to do 2 in the center of each of my V stitches. That way it pulls them apart, but it keeps our stitch count right. And it just enables those to open up as if they would if we were doing another V stitch into them. So it opens them up like this. And that's what I'm going to do all the way around. And when I get to that very center point, so there'll be 2 in each V, but the very center one, there'll be 3 to turn the corner. That's the only difference. So I'm going to do that all the way around. So I'm going to pause the video and I will catch up with you. I'm just going along at the moment. I will catch up with you when I get to this corner. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. Now, if you find yours is pulling and you're not happy, you can do 3 in between each of our V's, but I find that 2 is more than enough for me. So now I'm at the corner, and this was my first V. This is my center. I'm going to do 3 in my center, And again, if you wanted to put that stitch marker in the middle one, then please do. So then I'm just going to carry on as I have done all the way around, doing my 2 in between each of my V's. As I said before, if your tension's tighter and you find that is pulling and puckering, then by all means do 3. So I'm going to now go all the way round, and I'll catch up with you when I get back to the start again. Okay, so I've made it all the way round. I just need to finish off this corner by doing my 1 more stitch in there, and then slip stitch in into the center stitch, just like before. And I'm going to do 1 more round, so I'm going to do a chain and cinch it down, just secures that row, and then I'm going to do 2 in that same stitch that I've just slip stitched into. I'm going to do 1 in every single stitch around, 3 in my corner stitch as before. So I don't think you need to see me do that. I think we've done it quite a bit. So I'm going to go all the way round, and I will catch up with you once we get back to the start again. Okay, so I've made it all the way round, and I need to do 1 more in my corner and slip stitch into my next stitch. And for now I'm going to end off. So I'm going to do a chain, cinch it right down and pull it through. So this is how the border looks with just 2 rows of each. And I don't mind it actually. I think it looks kind of nice, but obviously this is a much larger piece of work when you actually have your Wrapghan made. So it does look better with the 3 rows, then 2 rows of V-stitch, and then the 3 rows of our UK doubles or US singles. So as I said before, for me, when I finished my Wrapghan, putting it around me and deciding that I'd had, because bearing in mind I knew I'd put a border on and it was going to be a nice chunky border, I did 38 rounds. But of course, if you feel that you need less than that, or if you want to do a smaller border, you just put it around yourself and see how it feels and how it looks around your shoulders if you were sitting in the garden, or if you were out and about and you wanted to put it around you, as long as it was big enough to do that. But I only did 38 rounds because I knew I was going to get this big chunky border. But of course, you know, it really depends on how big you want to make yours. So I hope you've enjoyed that. As I said before, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll be informed when there's new videos. I have another wrap coming up very soon. It will be made like a big long wrap rather than a rectangle. So thank you for joining me, and don't forget, if you want to make it lighter and more kind of drapey, the larger hook, as long as your stitches are not really long, the larger hook does actually add that lightness to the work. So thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.